Class, allow me to welcome you to this unit that is called philosophy. Philosophy is derived from two Greek words. The words are these: philos, which means love, and sophia, which means wisdom. Therefore, in a nutshell, philosophy is the love of wisdom. This term philosophy was coined by someone by the name of Pythagoras. Philosophy, in a nutshell, is the love of wisdom. Philosophy is an inquiry that entails analysis, criticism, speculation, and definitions. Therefore, any inquiry under the sun that involves inquiry, critique, speculation, that inquiry is philosophy. According to someone by the name of philosopher by the name of Plato. According to Plato, a philosopher is someone who looks at the essence of things. The essence of things, or the eternal in things. Not a person who looks at the appearances. And I want to say that any study under the sun is legitimately philosophy. By the way, when someone graduates in university, their highest degree is called PhD. It is Doctor of Philosophy. Whatever the field, whether it is mathematics, whether it is chemistry, whether it is biology, whether it is surgery, all of it is known as PhD. Therefore, any subject matter under the sun is a legitimate study of philosophy. Everything is philosophy, from midwifery to medicine to music. All of it is philosophy. Therefore, philosophy was known as the queen of all sciences. And everything under the sun is philosophy. Now, as we look at philosophy, it is good that you know that there are 5 distinct branches of philosophy. 5 distinct branches of philosophy. The first branch of philosophy is called metaphysics. It is derived from 2 Greek words, meta and physical. Beyond the physical, that is what we call metaphysics. We study metaphysics, we study cosmology, and we study reality. We look at questions of the existence of God. It is a speculative branch of philosophy, metaphysics. It asks the questions like, do you exist? Are you here? Julia, are you here? No, you may not be here. You may be at home. But it's only you pretending to be here. It asks the question, do you have a free will? Did you have a choice on choosing your husband, or circumstances beyond your control pushed you irresistibly to that particular person? We ask the questions, do we have a free will? In metaphysics, we delve at questions like that. Does God exist? And remember, this time, they asked a question in philosophy of the 5 proofs of the existence of God by a man by the name of Thomas Aquinas. Thomas Aquinas was a Catholic church father, and he was a philosopher. From Aristotle, he coined the very, very critical 5 proofs of the existence of God. Number one is that God is the unmoved mover. Just as you look at the twigs outside, look at the twigs outside. They are bending. It's as if they are dancing. What is moving the twigs to bend? You may say, oh, of course, the wind. What brings the wind? Some people can say some forces from the sea. And what moves those forces from the sea? You will go until you reach a place where there is the unmoved mover. And that unmoved mover is God. There is always the second argument is called the uncaused cause. It's in metaphysics. Uncaused cause. For every child to be born, there must be some cause. There must be some two people who have sat, or even if they have not sat, they have acted, and a child is born. When you go until you reach a place where there is no cause for the first work, for the first human being. And then you conclude that the uncaused cause is God. I said number one, the unmoved mover. Number two, the uncaused cause. Number three, there is what we call the moral argument. The moral argument is that everyone has a conscience. The conscience moves you. And some things that you do, even if you are alone, you know it is wrong. Like you'll find somebody when he's in the exam room and he wants to steal the exams. He's disturbed and he's sweating. Why? Because the conscience is disturbing that person. Ameweka hapa mandula is trying to read. Why? Conscience. Who put the conscience in man? God. The moral argument for the existence of God. Number four, we have what we call the teleological argument. This is the argument from design. When you see the way people are created, there is beauty and design. When you see all the water towers from Mount Elgon, and from Mount Elgon, the water moves to Lake Victoria. Then it moves up to River Nile. That is one of the greatest wonder of the world. The design. There must be an intelligent designer. Who designed a human being? Even the way you operate. You see, your eyes are front, they are not behind. Assuming you had your eyes behind you, you could be having serious problems walking. And it could be a very terrible scenario. But God is an intelligent designer. It's called the teleological argument. The fifth argument is called the ontological argument. The ontological argument, which says that God is that which nothing greater can be conceived. If you think of something big, then God is bigger than what you can conceive. That is the argument by Aristotle. Anselm, he began the teleological argument. First branch, which I've said is speculative, is called metaphysics. The second branch of philosophy is called the second branch is called ethics. Ethics is the study of the rights and the wrongs. You study the ethos of a community, the norms. And I want to say categorically that there are three particular ways that people look at ethics. Number one, there are people who believe in objective ethics. Objective ethics, you believe that there is a universal standard of right and wrong that applies to every community. You believe that there is some objective ethics. Number two, we have something that we call relative ethics. Number two is relative ethics. Relative ethics is that ethics is determined by a particular community or society. Like in other communities that we have, like the Maasais, You can go and entertain yourself in your age mate's place. True or false? True. So long as you plant a spear in the right place. And when a person looks at it outside, he will know that someone is entertaining himself. And he looks at the kind of the spear, and maybe he goes now to his place and he entertains himself. There is no problem in Masai. But when you try from where my friend comes from, in Marama land, you are going to be killed. So the people who believe in subjective ethics, they believe that ethics is dependent on particular communities. There are certain communities that condone certain things. There are certain communities that do not. It's called relative ethics. Lastly, there are people who believe in subjective ethics. That ethics is determined. Ethics is determined by what? Ethics is determined by personal choices, tastes, and preferences. Those people, you will discover, like existentialists, they say, I determine myself what I'm about to do. That is the second branch of philosophy. The third one is called aesthetics. Aesthetics is the study of beauty, the expression of beauty. Some people say big is better. Some people say small is beautiful. And you look at beauty. As you study beauty, like the young man who is here now, he is doing a lot of aesthetics, studying beauty, the expression of beauty, as he writes SMSs in the wee hours of the day. He is doing aesthetics, he's becoming a philosopher. And as they concoct aesthetics. Yeah, you get it. Aesthetics. The study of beauty and the expression of beauty. Certain culture, beauty is seen by Masgwembe. People look at that, this side of the leg, and say, that is beauty. Right? You see in the internet, some people look at beauty from strange places, and they say, this is beauty. So beauty. But a philosopher saying beauty is to God. So, as we look at knowledge, remember that there is a posteriori knowledge and a priori knowledge. A priori knowledge is knowledge without experience. It is knowledge not based on the senses. You know the 5 common senses: the sense of touch, the sense of feel, the sense of smell. And most of the people, as you see, as they express relationship, they desire knowledge that is a posteriori experience with senses, the 5 common senses. A priori is without experience. A posteriori is after experience. You will discover that Plato emphasizes a posteriori knowledge, while Aristotle emphasizes a posteriori knowledge. Now, we go to logic. Logic is the study of the correct reasoning. It's the study of the correct reasoning. What do I mean by correct reasoning? You reason correctly when you are talking about logic. And there are 2 things in an argument. Number 1, there is a premise. And number 2, there is a conclusion. There can be 2 or 3 premises. Let me give you a very bad example, but for you just to know that all men are dogs. Peter is a man. Therefore, Peter is a dog. This is correct reasoning. Why? The premises support the conclusions. When the premises, these preceding statements, support the conclusion, you will know that that is correct reasoning. It's called correct reasoning. A sound argument, a good argument. But if I change and I say, therefore, Peter is an angel, this one is called false reasoning or unsound reasoning. And when it is an unsound reasoning, it is a fallacy, and it is called a formal fallacy. A formal fallacy is where the premises do not support the conclusion. It's called a formal fallacy. The second kind of fallacy is called the informal fallacy. The informal fallacy is where the argument that you are raising is not supported by the content or the context. Some of the informal fallacies, I'm going to give you an example, is fallacy ad hominem. This is a fallacy where you attack someone instead of attacking his argument. If someone talks to you like me, I give you an argument. You are not attacking my arguments, but you are attacking my personality. It's a fallacy. It's called fallacy ad hominem. And as you see people argue, you will find that as they argue, they engage in fallacies. Why? Because they do not attack the argument, they only attack the person. That is a fallacy. The other fallacy that I would like to say is the fallacy that is called false dilemma fallacy, where you give people extreme options and there is no middle ground. Like a young man like this one goes to a lady and says, unikatae ama nitajinyonga, unikubali ama nijinyonge. So there is no middle ground kusema ya kwamba you can be rejected and you can leave. That is what is called a false dilemma. False dilemma fallacy. The other fallacy, just to mention, we are going to look at them in depth. The other fallacy that we have is called a straw man's fallacy. A straw man's fallacy. This fallacy, you present the weaker arguments of your opponents. You present the weaker argument of your opponents and present it as the truth. Like yesterday, I saw an Ijungwa presenting the straw man's fallacy. He said that the people of Azimio want to protest because they want power sharing, but we will not accept. But the person of Azimio said that I want to protest because I think that these commissioners have been witch hunted. This man does not present the argument of the commissioners. No! He presents a weaker side of an argument. And when you present the weaker side of an argument, it is called a straw man's fallacy. Have you ever seen people engaging in fallacies? You misrepresent the argument of another person. Even as people are quarreling, sometimes you misrepresent what your husband said. True or false? True. So that you win the argument. Oh, and the good thing is that you are here. But I have to say, can a man really win an argument with a woman? Never. Yeah, you can never. So, unakubali, boy, you accept. But it's a fallacy in philosophy. It's called a straw man's fallacy. Now, we have finished the 5 branches of philosophy. As we look at philosophy, there are methods of doing philosophy. There are methods of doing philosophy. There is the dogmatic method, where you begin with certain things and hold these certain premises as unquestionable and true. You begin by accepting these premises without questioning them, and you begin the argument from that. It's called the dogmatic approach. Dogma. Don't write other things. Dogmatic approach or method of doing philosophy. And the other one is the skeptical approach, where you begin by doubting everything. Skeptical.
No, when you define the other one. The first one.
The dogmatic. You begin with certain arguments. You begin with certain argument or a premise that you believe is true and cannot be questioned. You can begin dogmatically by saying God exists. And you will not question that. The premise that you begin with, you do not necessarily question it. It is called the dogmatic approach to philosophy. The dogmatic approach to philosophy. The other one is what we call the skeptical approach. From the word skeptic. Skeptical approach. The skeptical approach is the exact opposite. You begin by doubting everything. You will find that somebody by the name of René Descartes. René Descartes begins his philosophy by doubting everything. And he says the only thing you cannot doubt is that you are doubting. You doubt everything, but the only thing you cannot doubt is that you are doubting. And he ends his philosophy by ego sum. I think, therefore I am. It's a skeptical approach. You doubt everything. You doubt. Are you in class? Are we here?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Your body or your soul or your minds are here. Some people are harvesting maize as I'm talking. Some people are doing strange things as I'm talking. And I doubt if you are here. I doubt everything. Are you seated there? What makes you think that you are here or you are dreaming? Are you really here? Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure that your home is still where it is?
Yes.
That's an approach of philosophy where you doubt everything. And I want to say, in actual sense, you doubt everything. It's a skeptical approach. There are people who believe everything. And they are very disappointed. So we look at some of the methods of doing philosophy. And later, I want us to... I'm doing a summary of the entire unit. Then later, we are going to look at the history of philosophy. In the history of philosophy, we are going to begin with pre-Socrates philosophy. Pre-Socrates philosophers. The first one is called Thales. Thales, you see, the pre-Socrates philosophers were different from the poets and the theologians. The poets and the theologians, according to them, the origin of the universe was from the gods. And they engaged in speculation of gods and myths, gods. But pre-Socrates philosophers were the beginning of the scientific thinking. They wanted to explain the origin of the universe from the substance that are there. They began explaining the origin of the universe from things, not from God. Thales was the first of the philosophers. And according to them, the primordial stuff, there is something that they call the primordial stuff. The original stuff that everything was formed, according to Thales, is water. Water is the primordial stuff. Everything is water. Kila kitu ni maji. And according to his thinking, do you believe that everything came from water? Even in human life, some people say it comes from water. And according to water can be found in 3 states: solid, liquid, and gas. So everything came from water, even tree, even rocks is water that is hardened and compressed. So according to Thales, everything came from water. And that is a pre-Socrates thinking. And I want to say everything came from water. And as he looked at everything that comes from water, he believed that the primordial stuff is water. There's another very interesting thing. He was a mathematician. I said every subject matter under the sun is philosophy. He was able to calculate the height of the pyramids in Egypt based on the shadow. And he predicted the eclipse of the moon that occurred in 538 BC. And that is false. The second pre-Socrates philosopher that I'm going to look at is a man by the name of Anaximander. Anaximander is a philosopher. Anaximander is a philosopher, and he said that the origin of everything is the undifferentiated mass. There is undifferentiated mass, that every particular thing was made, be it clay, be it timber, be it whatever. It was made from what? Infinite undifferentiated mass. But from this undifferentiated mass, particular things can be made. But these particular things cannot go back and make the undifferentiated mass. So according to him, the undifferentiated mass, whatever it is, the mass that everything could be made, is the primordial stuff. It is where everything came from. The other one is a person by the name of Anaximenes. Anaximenes, he held that the primordial stuff is air. Air is the primordial stuff. Air, when it is condensed, you get things like stones and hard things. But where air is expanded and it becomes bigger, it creates air and fire and things like that. According to them, the primordial stuff. According to Anaximenes, the primordial stuff is air. Vuta pums. Air without air. And he did this by observing human beings. That without air, you will die. When there was COVID-19, by the way, I contracted COVID-19. The biggest thing that people fought, and all of us contracted, but some of us did not know. Mimi tu ilipimwa na ikadhibitishwa. But people were fighting for air. Air. Why? Because air is the primordial stuff. Number 4. There is a man by the name of Herodotus. Herodotus believed that change is real. What you see as permanent is not real. What is real is what is ever changing. What is ever changing is real. And according to him, you cannot jump into the river twice, into the same river twice. The river always changes and it becomes something else. As you jump in this river and you go out and jump again, is it the same river? It's not.
The water.
No, what is the river without water? It's not a river. And that's why it's not the same river always. So some people want to kill others, but according to the lectures, you cannot jump into the same river twice. He believed that change is real. What you are seeing as permanent is an illusion. Everything is always changing and becoming. Even your bloodstream. Like as I look at Okia, what you are in my class and what you are now is different. Even the blood system has changed. We are always changing and becoming. Change is real. The other pre-Socrates philosopher, is a man by the name of Parmenides. Don't worry. Parmenides. According to Parmenides, is the exact opposite of Heraclitus. According to Parmenides, change is an illusion. What is permanent is real. Changes is an illusion. Are you the same person you are when you are a small girl of 10 years, or you are a different person? Are you different or are you the same? Are you the same or you are different?
Different but the same.
According to Parmenides, the changes that you see are illusions. Even when you throw an arrow, it remains in the same position. It is an illusion as you see it moving, it remains in the same spot.
Okay.
That is Parmenides. Now, we go to the three great philosophers. One is a man by the name of Socrates. Socrates was a philosopher. And we always have two things about Socrates. The Socrates irony and the Socrates, the problem of Socrates. Socrates did not write anything. He did not organize lectures. His method was dialogue and he asked questions. According to Socrates, a philosopher always asks questions. And the Socrates irony is that the people that he asked questions, Socrates claimed not to know. He said, the only thing I know is that I don't know anything. The only thing I know is that I don't know anything. Do I know whether I have students in class? The only thing I know is that I don't know anything. And according to Socrates, he asked the people who claim to know. It's called the Socratic irony. The people who claim to know did not know. But Socrates, who claimed not to know, he knew. It's a question of humility. Do not always go and tell people, I know this. Nimetoka St. Paul, Sasa, I can tell you this. And you will discover maybe the lady that knows more than you. Because of experience. That's why the only thing you need to say, the only thing I know is that I don't know anything. Socrates' mother was a midwife. And he said as a midwife, he helps people to deliver their own truth. Anasaidia watu kuzaa their own truth. So his purpose of it was dialogical. His method was dialogue. He asked questions. He engaged people in debates in marketplace with his students. Socrates was accused of corrupting the morals of the youth and introducing foreign gods in the Greek kingdom. And Socrates believed in the conscience. And he said the conscience, you should follow the conscience even to the bitter end. There was a vote in their parliament, and they voted to kill Socrates. Socrates had a chance of even fleeing, but Socrates did not take the chance. What did Socrates do? He accepted to drink poison, hemlock, and Socrates died. He concerned himself with philosophical thinking. He did not concern himself with personal hygiene. Maybe he did not brush his teeth. He did not bathe, because he concerned himself with the most important things, philosophy and thinking. The other person is by the name of Plato. Plato was a student of Socrates. And Plato is a nickname. It means a man with broad shoulders. And most of the writings of Socrates did not write a book. But Plato wrote. And sometimes you wonder, if you write about me, some of you might introduce your ideas and present them as mine. But they are not necessarily mine. So most of the arguments, most of the things from Socrates, we hear them from a man by the name of Plato, who was a student, and Aristophanes, who was also a student. Now, as we look at Plato, one of the great philosophers, he was the first one to write an all-embracing system of philosophy. But chief, the cornerstone, was his concept of forms, the theory of forms and ideas. According to him, the things that we see are temporal, that we use our physical senses to deduce. Those are shadows. They are not real things. The real things is permanent, eternal, immutable, and unchanging. That is the realm of the forms and ideas. The realm of the shadows are things that we see and behold. An example, just to illustrate this thinking, is that there is an allegory that he gives, the allegory of the caves. That some people are tied in the cave, and they looked at the walls of the caves. They were tied looking at the walls. So as people were passing, there is fire around, and as people are passing, like they are passing with a hen, and as the fire illumines the hen, they see the shadow of the hen. Like a good example, you can come here. Come here. Come in your seat. I was asking who to say to come. There are only two people who I can ask. They are seated here. Face this. As I am passing here, and there is light of the sun, and you see my shadow there. And you have sat here for the rest of your life until you think this shadow is real. And me as a person, I'm not real. The shadow is what you are seeing always. And as you continue living, you believe that the shadow is real. And according to Plato, things of your senses, what you see, what you touch, what you feel, are the shadows. The reality is what is not seen. It is eternal, it is unchangeable. Until one day, according to the allegory of the caves, one of the person who was seated there looked and he saw, and he managed to free himself, and he went outside. And he told the people that he went outside, he saw the sun, his eyes were a bit disturbed because he was used to darkness. But finally he adjusted and he saw the sun, he saw the real things, and he went and told the people that I have seen real things. And the people did not believe him, and they killed him. He was talking about Socrates. Thank you, you can go and say. That's why the things that you are seeing are not real. They are shadows, the world of shadows, the world of senses. And according to Plato, what is real is the world of forms and ideas. But I'll endeavor to explain in this unit. Now, Socrates was good in geometry. Plato was good in geometry and mathematics. And he started a school that was called the Academy. In the Academy, it is written at the doors, let him not enter. Let the one who is ignorant in mathematics not enter. That's why we still believe that philosophy is every study under the sun. This is very critical, and you will discover that it's very critical in theology. Next time, as we discuss systematic theology 1, that is the time you are going to face these arguments that I've raised for the existence of God. And it is part of philosophy. Philosophy is a bridge that can be used, is a very good handmade servant, but a very bad master. When philosophy is misused, it leads to many heresies. Now, we have finished Plato's summary. Let's look at Aristotle. Aristotle was a polymath. That means he knew virtually everything except mathematics, unlike his teacher. Socrates was a student of Plato in a school that was called the Academy. Aristotle was the teacher of Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great, by the way, the city of Alexandria is named after him. He conquered the whole world at 33 years. There is no war that he lost, Alexander the Great. But he was tutored by a man by the name of Aristotle. Aristotle was a biologist. He used to study specimens, and during his honeymoon, he spent a lot of time collecting specimens. In fact, myth has it that Aristotle drowned when he was exploring the life under the sea. He wanted to understand, and he drowned and died. He was so obsessed with the study until he did not know that he was lacking breath, and he passed on. According to Aristotle, he disagreed with Plato, and he believed that the reality of a thing is in that thing. There is no shadow, there is no forms, the world of forms and ideas. He said forms and ideas are resided in that thing. He disagreed with his teacher, and later he formed this school that was called the Lyceum. And Aristotle used to teach as he used to walk around, and he taught. He taught virtually every field. Aristotle, like Plato, was accused, but Aristotle fled instead of facing his accusers. He was not like Socrates, who faced his accusers and drank poison. Then from there we go and look at 3 schools of philosophy. The 3 schools of philosophy that I will endeavor to talk to you is, number 1, rationalism. Rationalism is a school of philosophy by a man by the name of René Descartes. René Descartes was French, and it was a school. He wanted to create a school of philosophy that was based on certainty, what you are sure of. Like the mathematical certainty, that you know 1 + 1 is equals to 2. And he began a method of doubting everything. And he arrived that the only thing that you cannot doubt is that you exist and that you think. I said earlier, I told you that you can doubt everything. And he concluded and said that you cannot doubt that you think. You cannot doubt that you doubt. And he concluded and I said, I think, therefore I am. That is where he wanted to begin his philosophy from. From what? he was certain of. It's called rationalism. Thinking was very critical, not the senses. Because the senses, you cannot be certain of your senses. Sometimes you are very excited and very spiritual. Sometimes you are very gloomy. You cannot trust your senses, but I think, therefore I am. The next school is called idealism by a man by the name of Hegel. It is dialectical. It's one of the philosophical methods. One of the philosophical methods is dialectical. Dialectical method of doing philosophy is begin with a thesis, an antithesis, then you conclude by a synthesis. A thesis is kimutai is good. An antithesis is kimutai is bad. A synthesis is kimutai is good and bad. And according to a man by the name of Hegel, everything including history goes with a thesis, a synthesis, and an antithesis. And there is this spirit that controls history. He calls it geist. It could be an expression of God, but it's a spirit that controls history. According to Hegel, he believed that the Africans are incapable of doing philosophy because they cannot write. So Hegel's philosophy is very difficult to understand. It's called obscurist. It's difficult to understand. And some people call it pseudo-philosophy. Very, very difficult. But he believed in history. It goes from history, it goes from thesis, antithesis, and the synthesis. You'll find that the class wars that are in communism and Marxist-Leninism got their motivation from Hegel. Lastly, in the schools of philosophy, we have a man by the name of Jean-Paul Sartre. He began a school of philosophy that is called existentialism. The context, you see, the context of rationalism was during the time of the Renaissance. The context, it's good to know when it began. The context of Hegel, who was a Germany, idealism is during the time of Romanticism, that period. Then the time of existentialism by Jean-Paul Sartre was after or in between the First and the Second World War. Jean-Paul Sartre said that life is an empty bubble out of the sea of nothing. Life is from nothing to nothing. What is life? Maisha, what is life? Can anybody help me? What is life? Jean-Paul Sartre says that life is an empty bubble out of the sea of nothing. Life is from nothing to nothing. And life is very, very absurd. Mtu anazaliwa, anasoma degree, siku ile ana graduate, the person is involved in an accident and dies. Life is absurd. And death makes it more absurd. And is there any purpose for life? That's why existentialists exist. They say, when you look at the context, there is no purpose of life. You are not supposed to look for the purpose of life from books and texts and the Bible. No. As an individual, chart your own answers to your own questions. It gets to exist. It gets to subjectivity. And that is, life is absurd. Death is real. And even if you do anything, finally you are going to die. So what is the purpose of living? You are going to preach. You are going to do what? But finally at the end of it, it's absurd. Those are existentialists. We as Christians challenge them and say they reduce man as being made in the image and the likeness of God. They reduce that man has a purpose in their existence, and they make life to be useless. Lastly, we conclude by African theology. African philosophy. In African philosophy, there are 4 trends. The first trend is called Ethno philosophy. The Ethno philosophy is the philosophy that believes in the collective wisdom of a community. It's called Ethno philosophy. And African philosophy is different from the Western philosophy that we have looked at. Some of the Western philosophies that I've explained, some of you are really surprised. They did not know how it relates to their life. African philosophy is practical. Western philosophy is more abstract. African philosophy is oral. Western philosophy is mostly written. African philosophy is based on myth, riddles, stories. And I want to tell you, every community have their own proverbs. Can somebody tell me a proverbs of their own community? And I tell you that is African philosophy. With us in my mother tongue, we say Samus Muria. If a person is bad, he belongs to a particular community. There are people who believe that you cannot ban. You cannot do 2 things at the same. That is African philosophy. And in that particular lesson, everybody will come with a proverb from their own community. And please don't cheat me. I know most of these communities. So you do not imagine things that say that is a proverb from your community. You say it in your community, interpret and tell us what it means. Ethno philosophy is the first trend. And ethno philosophy, from the word ethno, it believes it is hinged on the collective wisdom of a community. And you see, African philosophy talks about gods. There are 3 types in African. 1, we have God the Supreme, Assis, beyond. Then we have the spirits, follows the second tier. The third tier is the practitioners, the mediums, the diviners, the priests, and the 4th tier is the common people. So with you could be the second tier. Ethno philosophy. The second philosophical trend is what is called philosophical sagacity, where there is a particular man who is considered wise and a spokesman of the community, and he is able to look at the cultural values and interpret them in a way that makes sense to the community. These people are called spokesmen of the community, like Manguliechi in Bokusoland. These are people who are considered wise, and what they say is considered sagacity philosophy. The third branch is what we call, the third trend is nationalistic philosophy. In nationalistic philosophy, we look at philosophies like Harambe philosophy by Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. Harambe philosophy by Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. He wanted to pool resources to assist the government in attaining, to assist the government in supplementing their efforts. And Harambes were used for social development and also for economic development. Building of hospitals, schools, and up to today, we are products of Harambe. Because even when I went to study, in my degree, my master's, in my PhD, some people did Harambe. Harambe is in Kenya. No, some of you are young. Nyayo philosophy now, you are asking the right question. Nyayo philosophy is by Daniel Torotich Arab Moon. And some of the benefits of Harambe philosophy, you'll see there is a lot of development. There were Harambe secondary schools, Mzee anaweza kukuambia, that were built by the community, not the government, in assisting the efforts of the government. But ya moyo inaitwa nini? Nyayo philosophy. It was hinged on peace, love, and unity. It brought some relative peace at a time when turmoil was in Africa. And it states on being mindful of other people's welfare. And Nyayo means following the footsteps. So he followed the footsteps of Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. That is Harambe Nyayo philosophy. There is Ujamaa. I'll come to it. There is Ujamaa or collectivization. What did you want to ask?
So we can conclude that Nyayo is Harambe.
Not necessarily. There are some differences.
Yeah.
And when you look at the people who criticize Harambe, the Harambe philosophy, there are people who have misused Harambe. There are people who have misused Harambe. Even sometimes we as servants of God have misused Harambes. Like when you go to your congregation and you unaitisha Harambe ya kushuka nywele. Harambe mara 10 for the same thing, which is misusing the spirit of Harambe. And some of it is corruption. Money that is taken from somewhere in government is brought to Harambe for political money. Nyayo philosophy, they accused it of corruption and the excesses, but they have their benefits. Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, I think a very honest president. In 1967, they had an altercation with Kenyatta. And Nyerere said, Kenya is a man-eat-man society. That's why they can import GMO. Man-eat-man society. In 4 days, mind in Africa. Is Kenya. Kenya is a man-eat-man society. You see, there is a clip of some people, gari imeanguka. Instead of going and helping the person, they loot. They loot. Kenya is a man-eat-man society. And Nyerere and Kenyatta told Nyerere that Tanzania is a man-eat-nothing society. So he says Kenyans are greedy, but Tanzanians are poor. Is it better to be greedy or to be poor?
As a Christian.
But you will see everybody in Kenya is very greedy. True or false? True. Ungakujenga nyumba room 40, there is somebody who built 52-roomed house, but he died without entering one. Ukiingia ndani you need a map. Yeah, 52 rooms, seriously. Hata kuosha hiyo unahitaji watu wangapi?
52.
Kenya is sometimes very greedy. So there is in Nyerere began a philosophy that is called Ujamaa, collectivization. He wanted to sort the things of inequality and uneven distribution of land and wealth. And he brought the nation as one. Kenyans have succeeded economically, but Tanzanians have succeeded nationhood. Tanzanians, they consider themselves as Tanzanians, number one. But Kenyans, we are Kurdis, Kalenjins, Luyas, and our tribal chieftains everywhere. Kikuyus, whatever. We don't have a nation, we have a mixture of tribes. That's why when you see demonstration, it just shows that we are not a nation, we are just a band of tribes, forced together to live. But Tanzanians, they are Tanzanians first. So Kenyatta built the economy, Tanzania built Kenneth Kaunda, not Kenneth Kaunda, Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, Kabarage built the nation. He was not corrupt. He even did not work with the bodyguard. Mwalimu, he was the reverend. Mwalimu. Very brilliant, committed Catholic. He was a churchman. Now later, we'll look at Humanism by Kenneth Kaunda. KK, the man with a white handkerchief. And you look at suit in a Kaunda suit up to today. They used to put them on. It's called Kaunda suit. And Kenneth Kaunda, or KK, he began his philosophy that is called humanism. And according to him, humans are the purpose of development. They believe that all humans should participate. They should work hard. Just like in Tanzania, they should work hard. And they should participate in developing policies. And they should participate in government. Then we look at Pan-Africanism by a man by the name of Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame Nkrumah studied in Ghana, then he went to US and he saw racialism. He joined the Pan-African Student Union and the Pan-African Unions. He was a Pan-Africanist. He believed that Africans should unite. Africans of all places should unite. And according to him, the economic development, they should seek the economic development first, and the rest will be added to them. That is, that he fought against racism wherever and whatever form it's found. And he sought that all African nations should be free, and that there should be one country that is called Africa. But the diversity and the differences is difficult to attain. That is one lofty dream of Pan-Africanism. There is a man by the name of Leopold Sédar Senghor. Senghor began what is called negritude, to appreciate what is black and to believe that black is beautiful. You know, everything that was considered white was considered to be beautiful. That's why we want to bleach our skin, we want to appear strange, we want to get choka, to appear...
Foundation.
What is foundation? Hiyo ni mahewa. You want to appear better.
Yes.
And to bleach your skin. But according to Leopold Sédar Senghor, black is beautiful. Black is good. And appreciate the blackness. And according to them, when we were being demoralized, called black, lazy, ugly, and we have accepted that. We should change our mind, liberate our mind. Later, we conclude this unit by looking at two philosophers. There is another philosophy that is called Ubuntu philosophy. In Ubuntu philosophy, we believe I am because you are. And since you are, I am. Even Mbithi explained this philosophy. I am because you are. You believe that the community is very critical. The purpose of us is not to exist as individuals and for our own self-aggrandizement, but we exist in the context of a particular community. Ubuntu philosophy, we believe in mutual respect and sharing. That's a very African concept that was very critical during the time of COVID pandemic. And it's a concept that moves us in an African society where people have mutual solidarity in particular things. We look at two great philosophers who are Africans. We look at a man by the name of Mbithi. John Samuel Mbithi is an Anglican born in Makueni, studied in Makerere, then later Cambridge. And according to Mbithi, Mbithi began disputing the Western concept, or the concept of the missionaries, who thought that everything that was African was sinful and evil. He disputed that concept. And he wanted people to appreciate the African religion. And according to him, the African religion was almost at par with the Old Testament. It was preparatio evangelium. It prepared people to receive the gospel. He also expounded the concept, I am, because you are, and since you are, I am. The concept of the community. Mbithi was an ecumenist, and he's an Anglican canon. He died some 2 years ago, but a brilliant theologian. And he expounded the Sasa and the Samani period, that Africans have a very long past, the present, and a short future. The cyclic concept. Later, we look at a man by the name of Kwame Bediako. He's a Ghanaian. He also died some 10 years ago. He was a Ghanaian, and what he emphasized is the new world Christianity perspective of looking at Christianity. Number two, he said that the Christians who existed in the 2nd century wanted to make Christianity feel at home in the Roman world. Just as African theologians now, they want to make Christianity feel at home in the African setting. He also believed in what is called oral theology and grassroots theology. That is the theology that uses the idioms, the day-to-day idioms of the Africans as they express themselves. In a nutshell, I have finished what we are supposed to cover. I've looked at the introductory materials. I've looked at the definitions. I've looked at the branches of philosophy. I've looked at the methods of doing philosophy. I have proceeded to examine the pre-Socrates philosophers. I've looked at the great philosophers Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. And I have also examined the schools of philosophy: rationalism, idealism, and existentialism. Later, I've looked at African philosophy, the trends, the ethno philosophy, sagacity philosophy, nationalistic philosophy, and I've also examined the final one. I did not tell you is written, is a professional philosophy. The professional philosophy is that philosophy where it is written and it is based on scientific thinking, it's based on rationalistic thinking and argumentation. And that is the final trend of philosophy. We have looked at these nationalistic philosophies in a nutshell. And I hope that you will become good philosophers. May the Lord bless you as you study. I pray that you will become very good philosophers, and therefore later become good theologians. Because philosophy acts, number one, as a bridge to understand theology. Some of the arguments, like for the existence of God, is a bridge that will make you understand the revealed theology. Most of our philosophy comes from the natural theology that comes from observing nature. But revealed theology will come after you have understood scriptures. Like philosophy can make you to understand the existence of God, but the doctrine of Trinity, you will understand it when you look at revealed theology. Philosophy is also good in systematizing theology. We believe in logic and correct argument and thinking. Therefore, this unit is important so that you think logically, coherently, and systematically. Also, it is like a shield. Most of the philosophical arguments are used in the defense of the Christian faith. It's called apologetics, the rational defense of the Christian faith. May the Lord bless you as you engage in this journey of becoming scholars, philosophers, and theologians. In the name of God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.